Hot hatches are some absolutely staple cars in the car world, and today I want to talk about 5 in particular that I think are pretty underrated. The kind of hot hatchbacks you just don't think about as much when you're going on the hunt for a hot hatch. All 5 cost less than £15,000. If you want to see the same video again at a different price range, do hit the like button. I will make more videos if it gets lots of likes. Subscribe so if you're new. Without further ado, let's get straight into it. Everyone knows about the 500 Abarth in all its guises. As a fast super mini and having driven one, it is a very fun little car to bash around in. But a car that I would say has gone a little bit more under the radar in comparison, and I would say might actually be a bit cooler, is this, the Abarth Punto Evo Super Sport, which was cancelled slightly prematurely due to low sales, especially when compared with that 500 Abarth. That's a real shame considering these came with a 1.4 litre turbocharged inline-4 engine, which produces 177 brake horsepower, taking them to 60 in 7.3 seconds, much slower than all the other cars on this list, but don't count it out for that reason, as out and out pace isn't all you need to make a fun hot hatch. The magnitude of this car's sales flop really does deserve a mention though. In 2009, 1,500 Abarths were sold in the UK, 4,303 Cooper S's were sold, and just 247 Abarth Puntos were sold, which is just insane. There's no wonder Abarth pulled it from the market. But it's actually a very good car when it comes to driving, with its torque transfer control system, which helps the car to handle far better around corners, similar to a diff, just without being a diff. It's known to have much more mature or refined handling than the 500 Abarth, a bit more controllable and more of a competitor to the Renault Clio RS or equivalent. In Super Sport spec, it comes with a slightly different set of alloys and a more aggressive interior, alongside additional upgrades to the brakes and chassis. Genuinely think these are my personal favourite looking modern Abarths, and they still look good out on the roads today, so if you're in the market for an underrated hot hatch that's also pretty rare and has pretty cheap insurance as well, this might be the car for you from this list. They'll run you around £7,000 at the bottom end now in Super Sport spec, and 15k is plenty more than enough for a 2014 model with 65,000 miles on the clock. Apparently dealer service wasn't very good on these, and brake failures are known too, but in general the main issues mentioned by owners are quality of life related, with bad fuel economy and the likes. The Mazda 3 MPS or Mazda Speed 3 or Mazda Speed Exceller, depending on which market you're in, is definitely an underrated hot hatch in my opinion, given that when you think about cars in its price range it rarely comes up in conversation, but genuinely has some pretty decent performance for the money. That's thanks to its 2.3 litre turbocharged inline-4 engine, which uses 256 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 5.9 seconds, and what makes it even better is it is very tunable, with a simple remap offering 290 brake horsepower pretty easily. This came in 2 generations, though in reality the second gen was effectively a modified first gen to iron out some teething issues and enhance the performance to another level. That meant that though both cars have the same engine, the second gen got a bunch of changes to the ECU, and gear ratios were also modified in line with the newfound power. Add on the new LSD and a slightly stiffer overall body, and you've not just got a faster car, but one that can handle a corner a lot better too. That's not to say the first gen is a bad car, and either way you're buying into a car that won multiple awards during its short stint of existence from 2007 to 2013, due in part to its pace and performance, but also because of how Mazda surprised the market with a hot hatch on release. It wasn't the first ever Mazda hot hatch though, as we have seen a couple in the past, but it was the first Mazda hot hatch since the 323 GTR and GTX of the 1990s, both of which have garnered cult classic status today, and I see no reason why in 20 years time, assuming we're still driving combustion engined cars, these won't gain at least a little cult following as well. If you want one, you'll need to spend around £3,000 at the bottom end for a first gen, making it the cheapest car on the list, and you'll only need to spend around 12k at the absolute top end right now for a low mileage second gen example. Oil contamination, which can lead to turbo failure, is a leading cause of headaches on these, and there are some known throttle issues as well. Also watch out for chain rattle, because that means obviously early onset engine death. In the world of all-wheel drive Audi hot hatches, there's no doubting that the RS3 reigns supreme with its insane inline-5 engine and ridiculous levels of performance. The only thing is, everyone knows they're rapid, and they're probably the first car you think of when you think of an Audi hot hatch. That, for me, is where the S1 comes in, as a smaller package, more in line with the classic hot hatches of the past, but still with that Quattro setup, attached to a 2 litre turbocharged inline-4 engine, which produces 227 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 5.6 seconds, not bad for a hot super mini. This is the smallest Audi S model car available, and the range topper for the A1, excluding the A1 Quattro Special Edition, which is a pretty well loved car in the world of Audi appreciators today. As it's not got an RS badge attached, it takes away from its potential in many people's minds, but genuinely I'm not sure it needed an RS. That engine is way too powerful for a car this small anyway, given it's derived from the same block you'll find in the Golf R and cars like that. It's also a proper old school hot hatch in that it's manual only, and though its gearbox isn't known to be its best feature, it's nice to have an old school vibe to a modern hot hatch. The main reason why why it never got a DSG was space and weight. In order to fit that all-wheel drive setup into it, it had to forgo some weight elsewhere and free up the space, which the manual box offered instead. Despite that size, it still comes with a 5-door option as well as a 3-door, though I'd personally go for the latter as I think it looks a little bit better. The interior too is no nonsense and minimalist in typical Audi fashion, although the rear is a bit tight to sit in, not sports car bad, but more like VW up bad. These are listed anywhere from around the 10k mark, and for £15,000 you get yourself into a 2018 model with around 50,000 miles on it. Some cars have suffered from high oil consumption, but many cars have suffered from high petrol consumption, as the car supposedly runs with a worse fuel economy figure than the Golf R. So I hope you guys are enjoying this video. If you are, then do hit the like button and subscribe as well if you're new. And let me know in the comments down below, what is the most underrated hot hatchback of all time? I've always thought that the coupe cum hatchback stylings of the Scirocco are insanely cool, and one version of it that I think often gets overlooked is this, the VW Scirocco R, which offers you everything you expect out of a VW R in one of the best looking packages, at least in my opinion. The only thing it lacks, which I think turns a few people off, is all-wheel drive, but to be honest, hot hatches were born in front-wheel drive spec, so that doesn't faze me too much personally, though I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. And on top of this, it's known to actually handle really well due to the wider track and lower center of gravity, as well as adaptive chassis control. Either way, it still has a 2-litre turbocharged inline-4 engine which puts out 261 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 5.6 seconds, slower than the Golf R and significantly slower than the top car on this list, but still plenty of performance out of it. The Scirocco R ran for 8 years, ending production entirely in 2018, quite a long time for a single generation car which only had one major facelift in 2015 that still didn't even have too many aesthetic changes. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and that's definitely the mindset with this car's looks. The interior too is a lovely place to be, particularly if you get an example with the proper sports seats in a nice spec too, though I've always thought that the plasticky dashboard deserved a bit of carbon fibre or something of that sort. It's known for exceptional build quality, and most reviewers and owners raved about how good the engine is as a build on from the one you'll find in the Golf GTI, plus it came with both manual and DSG automatic options. They'll run you around £6,500 the bottom end, meaning they've dropped a lot in value over the past few years, and £15,000 will get you a 2016 model with 60,000 miles on the clock. Some owners mention high oil consumption, but the engine in these isn't the worst for that from the VW lineup. Instead, I've heard complaints of it struggling to get the power down, but again, owners say the best resolution for this is good tyres. Taking the top spot is a car that isn't just underrated, it was actively disliked by many on release, as it made quite a controversial change to a beloved formula, the Subaru Impreza WRX STI hatchback, specifically in 330S spec. As the Impreza is a well-known saloon from the world of rallying, with pedigree in the tuning world as well, the sudden shift to a hatchback and the loss of performance in the World Rally Championship didn't originally go down very well, but today that's meant that in my books these have ended up becoming pretty underrated, to the point where I think you'd be hard pressed to find someone who even recognises a 330S or knows what that means from an Impreza perspective. Irrespective, you'll get that 2.5-litre turbocharged Boxer 4 engine which puts out 325 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 4.6 seconds, a whole second faster than the Scirocco R to 60. The 330S and even the more aggressive 380S were both cars specifically built for the UK market, in line with multiple previous generations which often had type UK cars. ProDrive were tasked with this, again like previous Imprezas, and with their knowledge of making amazing rally and race cars, that's no joke. ProDrive made it so that the car wasn't just more powerful, but it would perform as well, with a diff that will keep you safe in corners, and alongside the stiffer ProDrive suspension setup and the Recaro bucket race seats, you'll be locked in place and going fast around corners. The only thing I'd say is that even though it's definitely noticeably faster than some of the less aggressive Imprezas, it's also far more expensive, and it's the most expensive car on the list, starting at around £11,500, with £15,000 getting you a 2010 model with 80,000 miles on it. For me, I'm not sure that major power is necessarily worth the cost, but I still think the car is underrated. Watch out for reliability, however. Rust has been known by some owners, but most relevant, that 2.5-litre block has been the source of multiple issues, ringland failure and head gasket failure being the main two catastrophic ones. And so there you have it, 5 very underrated hot hatchbacks, at least in my opinion, that I think are well worth it for under 15k. If you want to see some more hot hatchbacks, then do click up here, subscribe as well down here. Mass thanks to the patrons for their support, and you guys as well for watching. I'll see you in the next one, and have a very Merry Christmas.